When you watch a movie, you most likely know relatively what the movie is about, and by extension, have a general idea of who it's catering to. Catering to a specific audience plays a significantly major role in a lot of things. This channel is quite literally half of a former channel's content to cater to a more specific audience. The truth is, catering to audiences is important, and the more general you go, the harder it gets, and this leads us to the topic of this video: rail transportation in Northern California, specifically two services that have two very different service structures: Altamont Corridor Express and Caltrain. Now, I and most people watching this video would agree Caltrain is the better service overall. However, ACE has a lot more positives than you would expect, and Caltrain isn't completely perfect. Today we'll be comparing the two services to expose the pros and cons of certain transit models and ideas. So, let's begin. Altamont Corridor Express is a peak rush hour weekday-only commuter rail. It runs between Stockton in the Central Valley and San Jose in the Bay Area. ACE utilizes a fleet of Bombardier bi-level coaches, Siemens SC44 Chargers, and EMD/MPI F40PHs. In 2025, ACE transported 763,800 passengers. The service is managed by the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission, or SJRRC, not to be confused with the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority, or SJJPA, the authority managing Gold Runner. ACE's trackage is owned by the Class 1 freight railroad Union Pacific and serves 10 stations over a distance of 86 miles or 138 kilometers. End-to-end, travel time is 2 hours 12 minutes with a top speed of 79 miles per hour and an average speed of 39. Caltrain is a daily, morning to midnight regional rail service. It runs between Gilroy, San Jose, and San Francisco. Caltrain utilizes a fleet of Stadler-Kiss EMUs for their electrified service between San Jose and San Francisco, and a small fleet of Bombardier bi-level coaches, MPI MP36-3C locomotives, and MPI F40PH-2 CATs for their diesel service between San Jose and Gilroy. Caltrain broke the 10 million rider mark in 2025, transporting 11,212,300 passengers. Caltrain is managed by the Peninsula Corridor Joint Powers Board, or PCJPB. The PCJPB also owns the trackage between San Jose and San Francisco, however the trackage south of San Jose is owned by Union Pacific. Caltrain serves 32 stations over a distance of 77 miles or 124 kilometers. End-to-end, travel time is 1 hour on express services, 1 hour 10 minutes on limited services, and around 1 hour 20 minutes on full-stop services. Caltrain runs at a top speed of 79 miles per hour with plans to eventually up that to 110 miles per hour in electrified areas. Given just the simple facts of these two services, you'd assume that Caltrain has by far the better service and ACE just needs to catch up. But that's not the full story, far from it. It doesn't take a genius to know that you can talk the talk, but walking the walk is a whole different story. So, let's take a look at what it's actually like to ride these two services. Okay, and welcome to San Jose Diridon. We're going to be getting on Caltrain 119 we're going to be getting off at Millbrae, then we're going to continue to San Francisco and ride it all the way back. You can see one of the South County Connection trains over there. And yeah, let's get into this thing. So, first impressions of these cars after being back in them after a little over a year. Definitely noticeably less clean, like there were scratch marks on the floor now. And also, it seems darker. I kind of like that, but the LED screens still work. That's good. I honestly wasn't too hopeful that those would keep working, but good. They still work. The smell, it smells fine, thankfully. It doesn't smell like piss or anything like that, so that's good. And, yeah, overall, it's not a complete dump, which is great. It's good that they didn't fall into that. And yeah, we're just gonna head to the front of the train and ride along and hope everything goes smoothly.
Caution. and walk to the side of the tracks. At least Caltrain asks you to keep track of your belongings and do not leave them unattended.
Another thing about the EMUs that I feel like most people don't give them enough credit for is, okay, past when the horn's being blown, how quiet they are. Like, I'm talking at basically the quietest I can talk while still being able to hear my voice, and like, the train makes barely any noise while on board, and that is a major plus. Probably the biggest downside, though, is the ports. You can't see them, they're beneath the seat, and in order to plug into them, you need a two-prong port, and they are not the best to get into, and they don't hold your stuff well, so keep that in mind when you're boarding one of these things. Unfortunately, they don't have USBs, and that really sucks. But past that, yeah, I'd say the ride itself is actually pretty damn good, and the seats are comfy. They've definitely been worn in well since when I first rode them, so that's good. And the quality of the ride is the same, pretty much the same as it was back in 2024. So yeah, just gonna keep riding.
If it was monthly, then you just tag off your first trip a month.
Now, there was one thing I forgot to mention that's a negative of these cars, and it's that there is only one bathroom, and it's right here. So if you couldn't hear me there is only one bathroom in each EMU set, and it is this. And yeah. It is, well, we found the San Francisco of these sets, I'll say that much. Yeah, the bathrooms are not great. They don't smell particularly good, and they don't look particularly good either. They're not awful, but not what you'd expect from, considering the rest of the train is great, but these bathrooms are, yeah, not so great. Yeah, and the fact that there's only one isn't great either. So yeah, this and the charging ports are by far the biggest negative of these sets, and pretty much have been, minus the cleanliness issue, but have been the biggest issue of these sets. Not spending too much time here, only a handful of minutes before we're getting on this train, 1:30, and then we're gonna head on back south to San Jose. Overall, Caltrain, a little over a year later, standing pretty good. The bathrooms are definitely a bit of an issue. That's something that needs to be fixed. Or cleanliness-wise, they can't exactly add a bathroom to the bottom of each of the cars, but everything past that and the charging ports is really good for a service that's in San Francisco, a city that's been getting a bit of a reputation for being kind of dirty recently. They are holding up pretty well. The inside smells nice, it's soft, it's good, it's comfy, everything you'd want. And I really hope the only goal now is just keep everything maintained and well and get this thing up to 110 miles per hour soon. Because once they do that, speeds will really be taking the forefront of the stage. But yeah, time to head on back south to San Jose and continue the rest of my day. Some of you who've been on my channel for a while may remember I actually did cover a ride on Ace a while ago, but I wasn't as in-depth in that video as I should have been, so now we actually get to do that. I'm here at Pleasanton Station, the first stop after the train passes through Niles Canyon, and will be shortly boarding the train to head a few stops down to Vasco Road. First off, Ace's stations east of Niles Canyon are very much park and rides, but that's not to say stations like Pleasanton are in the complete middle of nowhere. Pleasanton is only about a 10-minute walk from the city center, where there is a good amount to see and do, and as a bonus, it is served by the 92X County Connection bus, which takes commuters north along the 680 corridor. First thing to note about Ace is that the trains are actually relatively well filled. While they aren't quite to the point of standing room only, the 7-car sets Ace typically runs with are rather well warranted here, and it appears that yes, Ace is actually a service people use when it comes to commuting, and doesn't end up being some forgotten about ghost train like many services similar to it. Once I boarded the train and took my seat, I was once again greeted by another pretty major surprise with Ace: the smell on board. Smell is a pretty important factor not enough people bring up when it comes to comfort on transit. One occasion comes to mind when I was boarding a trolley to head home from school, took one step in, was blasted by the smell of weed, and immediately stepped right out and changed cars. If your transit smells bad, people will feel repelled by it. Ace handles this immensely well. Ace's trains have a very nice and pleasing smell, one that doesn't make you feel like you're bathing in chemicals either. I couldn't tell you what exactly it is, but it's strong enough that when I was snapping photos of 3302 at San Jose, I immediately picked up this smell emanating from the doors when I was walking a good 10 feet away from the train. And it's worth mentioning that this nice smell is emphasized by the cleanliness of the train. Ace's trains are squeaky clean on the inside, and unlike many commuter rail services, the difference between older gen cars, refurbished and unrefurbished, and newer gen cars is pretty seamless minus the newer design of the CEM coach interiors. Past this, a few other notes would be the LED screens, which are a nice touch and actually work, and the automated announcements, which despite being creepy robot voices, do actually change past stating the different train number and destination.
Good afternoon and welcome aboard Ace Train number 6 with a final destination of downtown Stockton. Please display your ticket at all times. Mobile tickets.
Overall, the experience on board Ace is excellent. It's pretty common to see rail services flexing how taking the train is more comfortable than driving, and while yes, that's true with any rail service, Ace takes that a step further and truly makes an effort to ensure their service is comfortable and nice, even for rail standards. While yes, the experience on board Caltrain wasn't awful, it wasn't at the same level of quality and comfort as Ace. When you put the two services in this light, it definitely showcases Ace's strides and Caltrain's weaknesses a lot more, but of course, why am I bringing up this topic? Well, to figure that out, let's begin with a small little simulation. It's 6 a.m. on a Friday. There are two different rail services that serve two different busy commuting regions. One of them is this line, Service A, and the other is this line, Service B. For the sake of making the simulation easier to understand, let's just say travel times are identical. Service A is an all-day high-frequency regional rail like Caltrain. Service B is a commuter times and direction-only rail service like Ace. Both services have a train departing at 6 a.m., and both trains arrive at their terminus at 7 a.m. Train A turns right back around after a short 15-minute layover and heads back the other way. Train B heads to a yard and sits awaiting its next service. Between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m., Train A is making laps back and forth down the line, while Train B is sitting servicing no passengers. At 5 p.m., both services meet up and both depart at their origins at 5 p.m., arriving to their terminuses at 6 p.m. Train B heads back to the yard for the night, while Train A continues operating, finally arriving back to its yard at 10 p.m. that night. Most of you probably could have connected where I'm going with this, but while Train B is sitting doing nothing, it's going through significantly less wear than Train A and has a significantly lower risk of seeing issues such as vandalism, tracing, or general nuisances. During its layover time, this train can even see things such as extra servicing or increased maintenance if anything went wrong on the morning run. And once it returns to the yard that night, it can also receive significantly more care than Train A, allowing it to be ready to go the next time it's needed. This is further expedited by what happens on weekends. Service B is weekdays only, meaning while Service A is running all day long, Service B goes entirely without use, allowing increased time for things such as heavy maintenance, refurbishments, and even testing if needed. All of this combined leads to Service A being more objectively useful, while Service B has a better onboard experience. With all of this in mind, we can now revisit the point I made at the start of this video. Ace, which was very clearly Service B in that simulation, has a very clear target audience, commuters traveling along the Altamont corridor. Since Ace knows exactly who it's targeting, it does everything it can to cater exactly for that audience in particular. Stations with large parking lots and bus docks, since most of its riders will be arriving from the suburbs far from the station and will need to arrive via car or other transit, long trains that operate exclusively during rush hour to fit commuters, a non-owned freight right-of-way since service is so limited, owning it isn't necessary, and extra time to make sure trains are squeaky clean and the experience is nice. This means that if you are a part of Ace's target audience, Ace is an amazing rail service. However, if you aren't, it's barely usable, as it's so catered to that one audience. Caltrain tries to cater to everyone, and while it does it well, the quality of service suffers, meaning everyone can use Caltrain, but you wouldn't put its rider experience on the same level as Ace. But what if you wanted both? A service with the frequency of Caltrain but the quality of Ace? Well, that, my friend, is the point of this video. Both are possible, it's just really difficult, even for international standards. But there is a way to make this work. Take that frequent Caltrain service like from before. Some things that would only require more money spent would be doing some things like aggressive overnight and layover cleaning of trains and equipment, improving air conditioning systems, and giving trains a more pleasant scent, among other options. If given funding and an adequate implementation strategy, you could already see this begin to work. If you wanted to dish out some real dollars, increasing the amount of trains on the track at once to increase layover times, but not lower frequencies, would allow for easier servicing of trains, and finally, station improvements such as platform gates and increased security to keep weirdos off the trains would allow for not only more cleanliness, but also increased rider comfort knowing that they're safe riding transit and not at risk of being attacked. These solutions, minus the platform gates, are things that don't need any extra infrastructure or anything that would be truly a hassle to make work. It just needs to happen. But I feel like that's kind of the reason why we don't see this happening everywhere. It's really easy and often very agreeable to make the argument that focusing on service improvements first, such as increased frequencies, electrification, and better stations, is far more important than rider comfort. While that is true in almost all cases, it does feel like we aren't taking as much agency as we should on this issue of rider comfort. If you have a bunch of trains running, but half of them are dirty, full of crazies, and reek bodily fluids, I doubt anyone would want to ride a service like this. The ideal transit service is one that is not only fast, frequent, and reliable, but also one that is comfortable, clean, and safe. That fact may seem obvious, but because of how difficult it is to do anything related to transit nowadays, we end up getting caught up in things that lead to shortfalls in lesser noticed, yet equally as important factors. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I've been immensely busy lately with school, work, and other creative projects of mine, so apologies for the very spotty upload schedule as of late. Come summer, when school will finally be out of the picture for me, things will hopefully finally pick back up. But as always, I was Matt from Whitestone's Rail, you were the viewer, and I'll see you in the future. Goodbye.